Hey guys, Zach Hartzlotter here. Hello and welcome to day 5 of the week of Star Wars Starship Versus. Every day this week I'm taking 2 Star Wars spaceships as chosen by you, putting them head to head, and trying to predict which one would come out on top in a one-on-one space battle. If you want to decide the 2 ships featured in tomorrow's episode, make sure to go down in the comments and leave your suggestion. Before we get too far in today's video, I just want to take a second to give a brief fundraising update. And for those who don't know, I'm raising money to try to upgrade some of my editing hardware and particularly get a new microphone. You guys have been super generous, and I've gotten a bunch of new donations, and I just want to take a second to thank everyone individually. First of all, I'd like to thank Dorian Kalgagruber, who donated while I was editing yesterday. I kind of snuck him into the end of yesterday's video, but I think he should be featured fully here. I also want to thank Michael Ackerson, who told me that he liked to listen to my videos on the drive home, which I thought was really nice because it's how I like to consume Star Wars content as well. Also to Thomas Nielsen Nygaard, thank you very much. Jonas Copperwire, who donated $50, and to the other anonymous donator who donated $5. Finally, I just want to give a special thank you to Bonham Smith, who donated $200, my largest donation yet, by quite a bit, and I actually couldn't believe it when I saw the email, because I really never thought that anyone valued my content to that degree. So thank you to Bonham, everyone else who donated, and of course, all of you guys for just watching my channel. Donating is completely optional, and really, I'm just happy to have you guys as an audience. Also, big thanks to Nick and Bruno, who donated before yesterday's video and who I featured there. I'll find some way to memorialize everyone who donated once the campaign is over. Alright, so on to today's matchup, which was suggested, I think, every day this week by Random Guy. I know some of you complain because Random Guy is here early every video and he puts in a bunch of great suggestions. Well, personally, I think that's great because it gives people many options to vote on, and you can do so yourself just by clicking the notifications, and you'll get an email when the video is uploaded. Today we are looking at 2 fast, unshielded starfighters with the V19 Torrent, as used by the Republic during the Clone Wars, going against the famous TIE Fighter as used by the Galactic Empire. The V19 wasn't super well known, it wasn't really heavily featured in many episodes of the Clone Wars, and it was replaced by the more popular Nimbus class V-Wing Starfighter. If you want to get caught up on the V19, or as I'm sure I'm going to erroneously call it several times throughout this episode, the V-Wing, I've got 2 quick suggestions for you, and you can watch both of these on YouTube. Watch the Battle of Ryloth from Season 1 of the new Clone Wars series, and also watch Chapter 10 of the original 2003 Clone Wars series. Both of these have space battles where the V19 is heavily used by the good guys. So we're going to take the V19 and the TIE Fighter and put them head to head in a one-on-one space battle to try to predict which one would come out on top, and we're going to do so by looking at the 2 ships in 3 categories: offensive systems, defensive capabilities, and then intangibles. But the question here isn't which ship wins more categories, it's which ship is the better fighter, so we'll be looking at the 2 overall when making our determination. The only other rules that I have are that these ships are piloted by equally skilled persons, so no Jedi in either one, let's just say they're both piloted by clones. Also, no modifications to either of these ships, we're looking at the standard stock models. The TIE Fighter has about 100 variants, so for further clarity, we're looking at the TIE LN Starfighter. So let's start with weaponry, and we'll look first at the TIE Fighter. The TIE Fighter was introduced and popularized because of Imperial doctrine, which favored quantity over quality. And I mean, when you look at a TIE Fighter, it's got no shielding, no life support systems, a very weak hull, and of course no hyperdrive, so you'd expect the weapons to be fairly weak as well. Surprisingly, that's not the case, and the weapons on a TIE Fighter are relatively powerful for a ship of its size. And a TIE can fairly easily take down an opponent's starfighter or even a larger ship with one volley of its lasers. The TIE Fighter specifically had a pair of LS-1 laser cannons. These were augmented by advanced sensors and a powerful targeting computer. However, the weapons weren't perfect and were at times prone to failure and overheating. Alright, so now it's time for the V19, and this starfighter is built a little differently than the TIE. I think the first thing you'll notice is that instead of being in the middle of the ship, the weapons are on the end of each one of the Torrent's wings. Or should I say the primary weapons, the 2 laser cannons used by the ship. And it's hard exactly to say how powerful these lasers are, but they're probably comparable to a TIE Fighter, perhaps a little bit weaker. The V19 does have an ace in its sleeve though, and that ace is guided concussion missiles. These are very clearly shown in the Clone Wars TV show, where Anakin makes use of their guidance capabilities to take down a bunch of separatist starfighters. The chapter makes the guidance capabilities on these weapons out to be pretty impressive. However, the show is highly stylized, so I'm not going to rely totally on the very proficient tracking abilities of the missiles. But it does confirm that they do, at least, have some ability to track enemy ships, which is highly useful, of course. Another thing shown by this chapter is that the missile lock-on is automatic, so the pilot itself doesn't need to create a lock, the missiles will do so on their own. This is also fairly useful because it allows a pilot to engage an opponent from long range before their sensors actually pick up a lock. The only other thing I want to say is this: the missiles are presumably quite powerful. We see in the Blockade of Ryloth episode that Ahsoka leads Blue Squadron, which is comprised totally of V-Wing Starfighters, and she leads them against a Lucerhall class command ship. So she and the Republic believe that they'd be able to critically damage the ship with just over a dozen Starfighters. That tells me that the weapon systems must be pretty impressive. So with that being said, I'm giving the category of weaponry systems to the V-Wing. The missiles just add so much versatility and give the ship such an advantage in a one-on-one dogfight. So next let's look at durability, and this one is interesting because both of these ships favor speed over any sort of hull or weapons protection. So if you're piloting one of these ships, your mantra has to be that I am not getting hit, because if you are, you're probably going down. I don't think that I've literally ever seen a TIE fighter take a shot from an enemy ship and survive. Either the ship will explode in a giant ball of fire, or a wing will be shot off and the ship will careen into some sort of wall or just off into space. The V19 seems to be treated similarly. During the Battle of Muunilinst, we see a single Genevex-class starfighter destroy an entire squadron with just its main weapons. Every single ship takes a single hit and is blown up. Similarly, during the Battle of Ryloth, most of Blue Squadron is annihilated by droid starfighters, and again, one shot will usually do it. I'm going to call this category a tie. Perhaps there is some difference in durability between a V19 and a TIE fighter, but in any sort of battle, I don't think it will matter, because one shot from most laser cannons will destroy or at least completely disable these ships. Alright, so let's now talk about intangibles, and the first is one that is always important in one-on-one starfighter battles, and that is target profile. Both of these ships are pretty small, and of course that goes back to their role as extremely cheap but fast starfighters. Both of these ships do have weaknesses though. The TIE Fighters, of course, is its very large wings, which are huge targets from the side. Compounding that issue is the fact that a TIE fighter pilot can only see straight ahead. The V-wing is quite wide, especially with its wings fully extended. However, the wings are quite small, and really, the whole ship itself is pretty tiny, so it is a small target. The most problematic area for the Torrent, like the TIE fighter, is from the side, where its wings are much larger targets. However, a Republic pilot has the advantage of having a very large canopy to see through. This gives them a much larger field of view than the TIE fighter, who is confined to seeing only straight ahead. The second intangible is technology, and the TIE fighter was built directly off of the backs and replaced ships like the V19. I think the most notable way that this technological innovation would manifest itself is in ship speed, especially where the TIE fighter is even more of a dedicated strike fighter than the V19. We also see this TIE fighter do away and strip away some systems that even the already minimalist V19 had. So presumably the Imperial ship is lighter, more technologically advanced, and faster. However, I'm not sure the same can be said about maneuverability. We know that the V19 has S-foils, which in the Star Wars universe, although it doesn't make sense per real-life physics, help with maneuverability in space. We also saw that the V19s were able to accelerate with and keep up with the Jedi Starfighter during the Battle of Ryloth. So presumably the ships are able to accelerate and maneuver fairly quickly. So let's go on to the actual battle now. These two ships come together in a one-on-one matchup in the middle of space. Who wins? Well, it's really one of those situations where the first party to hit the other one with one of their weapons will most likely come out on top. Now, will that be the TIE Fighter, or will that be the V19? The TIE Fighter has very powerful sensors and advanced targeting computers, while the V19 has those missiles that lock onto enemy ships. I think if you're a V19 pilot flying a very brittle ship and you come into contact with an enemy, your first response is going to be to fire your missiles immediately. You're not in the kind of situation where you want to risk a prolonged gun battle as you would, say, if you were in an X-Wing. Once the missiles are launched, I believe the TIE Fighter is in big trouble, because it will have to turn away from the missiles and try to escape them, which will be difficult as they have shown the ability to lock on to even Anakin Skywalker in his maneuverable Jedi Starfighter. At that point, the ship will be flying at full speed and will be focused on trying to escape the deadly projectiles. This gives the V19 pilot a huge opportunity to get into a tactically advantageous position. This is especially true given the fact that we know TIE fighters can only see straight forward, and also because we know that in the Star Wars universe, if you can manage to get behind an enemy ship, they're in big trouble. The V19 will then fire its laser cannons, and again, because of how weak these two ships are, only one shot will probably be needed to take down the TIE fighter. So right now, not only is the TIE Fighter trying to escape from a locked-on missile, but also trying to avoid stray shots from the V19. I think ultimately, given how fragile the ship is, it'll just be too much and the TIE Fighter will be destroyed. And really, the weaponry on the V19 just give it too big of an advantage, especially where its missiles lock on. If these missiles didn't lock on, I think the TIE Fighter would have a pretty good chance, just due to its superior speed, its small target profile, and its powerful weapons. However, they do, and I truly believe the V19 will fire these missiles straight away. And in open space, they will be extremely hard to avoid, especially where they can lock on from a distance. So I'm going to give this battle to the Republic ship, and I say the V19 Torrent wins 7.5 times out of 10. The only chance that the TIE Fighter pilot has is to get a shot off and destroy the V19 before it launches its missiles, because after it does, I think any pilot is going to be overwhelmed with having to avoid the ordnance and also trying to take the other ship down. When it comes down to one-shot wins, anyone can get lucky. I learned this while playing with the Golden Gun and GoldenEye for the N64. The TIE Fighter is going to need to get very lucky from a range to win, and that's why I only gave them a 2.5 out of 10 chance. But let me know what you think. Take a second right now to vote in the upper right-hand corner, and let me know who you think would win in a one-on-one matchup. Also, let me know down in the comments if you think I did a good job, if I missed anything, and of course, which matchup you'd like to see next. If you want to get further involved in the community, you can follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, or if you feel like it, donate on my GoFundMe page. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. May the Force be with you.